Welcome. What we're going to be covering today is AttendanceFlow. What is AttendanceFlow by Atteniv? It's a cloud-based management platform designed specifically to bridge what we call a mandate compliance gap that exists in a modern hybrid workplace. Since the conclusion of COVID, many companies have now instituted return to work mandates, but they're finding actual compliance and adherence to those mandates still remains problematic. Our product is really designed to address that, and it's comprised of four main pillars. One is compliance automation. The platform removes the policy burden from managers by automating the entire disciplinary workflow as it relates to return to office mandates. That includes initial verbal warnings, formal documentation, and possibly even termination documentation. It's highly configurable and customizable. Another pillar is advanced hybrid scheduling. Administrators can create and customize day-to-day hybrid schedules, assign employees in bulk, and manage which employees are assigned to which schedules and offices. Another aspect or pillar that we have is what we refer to as non-intrusive network presence detection. We can identify accurately who's in the office by using endpoint security infrastructure logs, such as Zscaler or Microsoft Defender, rather than invasive surveillance that requires additional hardware or applications. We do also provide some alternatives to that. If there's issues surrounding, say, security with providing API access to these logs, we do also have a very lightweight client that can be installed on either PCs or Macs that can detect when someone is present in the office. One of the interesting aspects in our last pillar is office utilization and efficiency. So the system provides real-time analytics to help organizations right-size their real estate footprint. It helps to identify underutilized offices and also ensures that every employee has a workspace when they need it. All of this is supported through a deeply integrated AI feature called Atteniv Intelligence, which is an AI-powered assistant that allows managers and HR teams to use natural language questions, such as what is the average attendance rate for all offices, to gain instant data-driven insights. You could think of AttendanceFlow as a smart thermostat for the modern office. Instead of wasting energy by mandating attendance in an empty building or guessing space needs, it can help you intelligently detect the proper mix and how to best utilize your office capacity, all the while ensuring that employees are following the mandates that have been laid forth. Without further ado, let's jump into the application and start seeing some of its features and functionality. What you're looking at here is the main homepage that every user would encounter. Several of the menu options and categories that you see below, such as analytics, administration, etc., these are all role-based in terms of whether they would be surfaced or not to the user. In this instance, I'm an admin user, so everything is accessible. But these first couple of menu options that you see under Home and My Schedule, this would be available to every user. When you come into this, it gives you some information just about your profile, also identifies which schedule you're currently assigned to, and provides different metrics around your attendance and adherence to policies and guidelines laid forth by the organization. You could also then see any recent requests that you may have made in terms of, for instance, working from home or a vacation request. You could also see any infractions that may have been accumulated as a result of you being expected to be at work on a given day and not being in attendance, and furthermore not having an excuse to, for instance, work from home. Obviously, there's any number of reasons why someone won't be in an office during the day they're assigned. They could be off-site training, they could be at a client site, Could be a doctor's appointment. There's any number of reasons. If approved, would constitute acceptable absences. So from here, when you click on My Schedule, you would see from this calendar view that I'm expected to be in the office Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of next week. I could request to work remotely for a given day and provide a reason and additional comments or further clarifications. As you'll see later in the demo, everything here is fully customizable by a client. You can then look back historically and see your overall attendance for a given month. Those with a green check mark are where you were expected to be in the office and were in the office as expected. On the 5th, you could see that I had requested to work remotely and it was approved. However, my work remotely request on Thursday, the 6th, was denied. The inboxes will include any warnings that have been issued. In addition, if you're a manager, you would see any requests that are made by your team to, for instance, work remotely or a vacation request, etc. Once we proceed forward into the people category of menus options, this is primarily tailored for managers. This allows you to manage and have visibility to how your own team is performing. It's set up in a way that reflects the corporate hierarchy. So in this case, I'm actually acting as a CEO. So I'm going to see not only those metrics for people who report directly to me, but also indirect reports. So it provides overall metrics about performance, overall compliance rate, number of escalations, things like that. You can also furthermore, because in this instance, I've got several different departments who report in through me, you can also then see, some information about those teams and how they're performing. Now we get into the My Team functionality, and this is what's really tailored for managers specifically. For instance, you could see for the week of 12/15, you can quickly see who was in attendance as expected. You could see any violations that may have occurred for that individual. In this case, for Andrea Richards on 12/16, she was expected to have been in the office, but she wasn't. Hence, you have a violation. As you can see here, there's also a convenient hover effect where you can see a heat map. And this gives you a broader perspective of overall attendance going back 90 days. So this allows you to quickly glance through and see how everyone is performing, adherence to policies and guidelines. This also reflects the organizational hierarchy. As the CEO, as Emma, you see direct reports, and then I can also then drill down and see my indirect reports. In this case, those who are reporting directly to Rafa. And from that, you could also then navigate further down. So reporting to Rafa includes all of these other individuals. And so you're able to drill down into specific teams to get an understanding of how each team is performing. One additional feature that we added is a tree view. And so this is an organizational hierarchy, and it allows you to, drill down into specific departments and teams. And the org structure is going to vary based upon the company. Different companies, org level 1 may be called a division, and another might be a department, for instance. The data you're seeing here would be data seeded and maintained through active integrations with HRIS systems. Currently, we support UKG and Workday, but others are certainly in the works. What you can also see from this view is, in this case with Stephanie, her individual compliance percentage, but then you can also see the team compliance. If we look at Tamara, her individual compliance with the office expectations for her, she's got a 76% compliance percentage. And as an overall team, she's got 84%. And the reason some of these appear highlighted and others not, like in green, is based on the business rules that you configure for your organization. So you could set different thresholds for what you consider to be acceptable or ones that potentially could be a risk. So from there, and as you can see, it also reflects when I went back to the regular table view, you can see that it also reflected those selections I made from the tree view. Let's now look at some of the analytics capabilities and features of the platform. Primarily, I would say for C-level executives, although managers certainly can find it useful as well, especially those who are higher up in the org chart. And we can begin by looking at Attentive intelligence. One of the benefits of having a new platform such as AttendanceFlow is AI was built in from the very get-go. This isn't a bolted on AI solution like you see with many legacy platforms. So for instance, and we precede this with a number of different examples of prompts that you can use. In this instance, we'll give this one a shot. This brings back overall compliance for all of your users within the organization. When you look at the attendance menu selection, this gives you overall understanding of the mix between in-office and remote days. For instance, during this period, there would be 72 what we call in-office days, which represent about 58% of the time that people are expected to be in the office. And there's also then 38 days where it's entirely remote. So this is kind of a blended view across the organization. And it's intended just to show you overall mix between in-office and remote users. And this then gives you the number of absent days, which reflects the percentage of time that individuals were expected to be in the office, but for whatever reason weren't. And so that's what that number represents. They could be both excused or unexcused absences. Where you can also then see is, since I'm coming in as the CEO, I can furthermore drill down into each of my organizations. And within each organization, you can drill down and see, specific users, teams. You can understand, how they've been performing. You can see the number of infractions for this particular user case. You can see that Sean has exceptionally high compliance with the mandates or the guidelines. You drill down into each of these, and you can, quickly assess how individuals are doing. And then there's an at risk. And so the at risk are those employees who are kind of bumping up against the thresholds you've established for that organization. And so it's useful, in particular for HR, to kind of stay on top of which employees, for whatever reason, are having difficulty following the mandates. And of course, then you can also kind of drill down deeper into the organization via looking at their managers, organization, et cetera. So now we come into the Office Audit Optimization series of features. And so in this instance, we're looking at Denver. You can see any of the different offices that exist for this organization. And what's particularly interesting about this information is it allows you to identify office utilization overall. So in this case, for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, you get to see in this instance, you've got a capacity of 13 employees, but there's actually more than that who are supposed to be in attendance for those 3 days there during the middle of the week. So this, tells you by quickly capacity, and do you need to make some changes to the overall lease, for instance, when it comes up. You can look at different offices and you see in Denver, we have quite a lot of excess capacity. The average utilization for that office is only 33%. So there's a lot of additional capacity that's not being used. And that feeds directly. You can also see it broken down by specific schedules. So you could see how that utilization is being applied to the different schedules that exist. So in this case, there's 3 different schedules relevant for this office. And it then shows you this conveniently leads into this office expense. And we think this is of particular importance to C-level executives who want to gain a better understanding of how they can right size their office capacity to reflect their organization. So in this case, you could see, for instance, that if we look at the New York office, for instance, and this information that you're looking at in terms of like leasing cost and monthly rent and operating expenses, this information can be directly pulled, say, from NetSuite. We have a deep integration with NetSuite where that information can be dynamically kept up to date. So in this case, the New York office has a monthly rent nearly $50,000, and office operating expense of about 15,000. So leaving out approximately 60,000, you could see that for the New York office, it has capacity for 28 employees, but actually only 7 employees are typically on site at any given time. So if you assume, for instance, that all 28 employees are in the office, then the actual cost would be, $2,000 approximately. But because, it's largely underutilized, your actual cost is a little over $8,000. So this could be a flag to indicate that, you might want to make some changes in your office rate. We will now look at some of the features and capabilities under the administration tab. Foremost among them is the scheduling piece. This shows you a list of current schedules that are available. A schedule doesn't necessarily have to be a hybrid schedule. It could be, someone may be assigned a schedule where they're expected to be on site 5 days a week. It's more of just a naming convention than anything else. But what this allows you to see is a quick overview, the number of schedules, and provides you some metrics as well about overall compliance within people who are assigned that schedule. It breaks it down into different categories to allow for further filtering. You can create any number of schedules. What this allows you to see is quickly at a glance any unassigned users. These are employees who have yet to be assigned a schedule. And various alerts can also be set up as part of the business rule management piece where you can bring visibility to the fact that some employees have yet to be assigned a schedule. A new employee coming on board may not be automatically assigned a schedule. We support single sign-on, and depending upon the identity provider, information can be sent along with the information from that single sign-on request, which would allow us to, for instance, determine which office, for instance, an employee belongs to. But if we go back into schedules, if we click on a given schedule, you can see right away at a glance that this particular schedule is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, as they're expected to be on site those days. The block below allows you to see who's assigned to that schedule, but also then you can assign anyone who isn't currently assigned to a schedule. So if we go back, in this case, you can filter by office. This allows you, when you have a large population of users, to filter them down. You can select one or multiple users and assign them to that given schedule. It's very convenient and simple to use. On the offices, this shows offices associated with a particular organization. You can drill down into each office and see which employees are assigned to that office. You can also see the relevant schedules affiliated with the office. You may have some employees who are part of hybrid schedule one. Maybe they're part of a particular schedule that doesn't have anyone assigned or isn't relevant for that office. Those schedules wouldn't appear here. This allows you to quickly see, who from which schedule who's actually assigned to the office. And then you can get further information about that office. You can also manually update and include the expense information, leasing information, and so forth, information that feeds directly into the office expense analytics. Users and roles is a listing of roles and users. The platform provides an easy ability to create new roles and to define specifically for that roles which options that role has access to. So it's highly flexible. You can create any number of different roles. A user can only be associated with a single role. But this shows you, a quick breakdown as to different roles. And then you can see the number of users assigned to those roles. The business rules speak to the heart of the customization and configurability of the platform. So out of the box, it comes with a number of different pre-populated business rules, and you can modify them to your organization's needs and requirements. For instance, you can set up different thresholds and add new conditions, for instance. This particular business rule, some of them are tailored towards notifications, and that's what this one is associated with. When your office utilization percentage reaches a certain amount, you could create an alert which would be sent to the appropriate role or individual within that role. So these business rules provide all the full customization that you need. Request types. Earlier in the demo, we talked about different options, like when you request to work remotely, for instance. That information comes from this set of request types. You can create new ones, remove them, etc. One of the most useful pieces of this that is central to the entire platform is the infraction policy. This is where you would define, typically by HR management, the different thresholds that need to be applied for the organization. So in this case, after 2 violations, an employee should receive a verbal warning. But you could define additional ones. For instance, a written warning maybe would occur after 6. And you can define who is responsible for the written warning. So you could see in the case of the verbal warning, after 2 violations, it's the manager's responsibility to provide that verbal warning. And this also applies directly to the notifications and tasks built into the application. When a verbal warning is required, the manager would receive notification of that. And once they have performed that verbal warning, there's an acknowledgement they would click upon to indicate they have provided that warning. And that's what the action deadline is. So if they haven't performed that verbal warning within 5 days, it can be escalated to this is a key foundational aspect to the entire application. We do have a knowledge base that we're adding. There's auditing and logging capabilities, as one might expect with an enterprise application such as this. And one of the features that we're currently enhancing is building a really comprehensive set of setup wizards that will basically walk you through onboarding a new organization. It will have a sequence of steps that need to be performed. The intention is we want to get you up and running as quickly as possible. And as I'd mentioned, we do have any number of different integrations. We support, SSO with Okta and Azure, for instance, and a number of other integrations as well. So I think that really constitutes the main functionality associated with the administration portion of the platform.